Revealed. How a black mechanic's amazing talent changed everything for a heartwarming love story. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, Marcus stood at the counter of his auto shop, guiding a wrench like a maestro conducting a symphony. His hands, stained with grease and oil, were a testament to years of hard work, each mark a badge of honor. He was more than just a mechanic. He was a craftsman, breathing new life into broken-down vehicles and mending them back to health. The scent of motor oil hung in the air, comforting yet familiar, weaving through the walls lined with tools as busy as his mind always was. But behind those confident hands lay a heart burdened with fierce loyalty. His aging grandfather needed him, and that alone fueled Marcus's determination. The summer sun dripped like honey over the town as Marcus worked long hours. He spent his days fixing tires, aligning wheels, and listening to the chatter of familiar faces. Still, he sensed the weight of being overlooked in a world that often turned a blind eye to a black man's skill. That feeling hung heavy on his chest, but he pressed on, driven by a sense of family pride. His grandfather's stories of valor during the war echoed in his mind, instilling in him a deep-rooted respect for perseverance. One sweltering afternoon, Lisa walked in, vibrant and lively. Her laughter danced through the air, lighting up the shop. She was the spirited waitress from the diner, known for her bubbly smiles and a cosmic love for breakfast foods. Marcus couldn't help but smile as she shared her endless dreams of a future beyond the cycle that tightened around her, a dream that clashed with the harsh realities of financial struggle. As Lisa chatted about a new pancake recipe she was excited to try, her old car sputtered out front, mirroring their lives, struggling but resilient. When she returned later, asking for help, sparks flew. In each other, Marcus found a kindred spirit, and over shared lunches and earnest conversation, they began weaving a connection. Laughter echoed through the shop, blending harmoniously with the clanks of tools. It felt like solace. But community whispers have a way of suffocating joy. Just as the possibility of love blossomed, a dark cloud moved in. Accused of theft linked to a local businessman, Marcus felt the ground shake beneath him. The community, once warm, turned frigid. Lisa's father disapproved vehemently, pointing fingers without knowing him. It stung. Marcus grappled with feelings of anger and sorrow, yet his resolve strengthened against a tide of prejudice and misunderstanding. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he fought to clear his name, Marcus also stood by Lisa, who was struggling to save the diner from impending doom. Their dreams seemed to hang on the precipice of ruin. The community that once forgave now flared with doubt. But one final tipping point approached. Marcus prepared to speak out, to rally not just for his innocence, but for the solidarity he believed this town deserved. Hope flickered amidst the chaos. Would this love withstand the storm? Was there enough strength left in their dreams? As shadows loomed, determination surged within him, ready to fight against every whisper of injustice that threatened to tear them apart. And just when everything seemed to hinge on a single decision, the pressure threatened to break, keeping readers gasping for what came next. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that tangled like the worries in Marcus's mind. He wiped the sweat from his brow and took a deep breath as he prepared to address the crowd gathered outside his shop. The whispers of accusation still hung in the air, sharp enough to cut through the warm evening like a hot knife. His heart raced. "Marcus!" Lisa's voice broke through the tense atmosphere. She was there, standing on the edge of the crowd, her eyes bright and resolute. She believed in him, even when the rest of the town did not. The sight of her, unwavering, ignited a flicker of courage deep within him. With a final nod to Lisa, Marcus stepped forward, raising his hands to catch the attention of those present. Faces filled with doubt turned to him, some hardened by gossip, others curious for the truth hidden beneath the surface. He felt their eyes weighing him down, but he stood tall, standing on the precipice of fear and resolve. "I didn't take anything." The words erupted from him, raw and powerful. "I've spent my life working hard, pouring everything I have into this shop. I fix cars. I don't steal from this community." There were murmurs, a mix of skepticism and intrigue. He glanced at Lisa, her expression a blend of concern and hope. He knew he had to push forward. "I understand that some of you may have questions. I'm here to answer them all. This isn't just about me. It's about the truth." The silence stretched painfully, filled only by the gentle rustle of leaves in the mild breeze. People shuffled, exchanging whispers, while Marcus felt the familiar sting of judgment clawing at him. Yet he couldn't back down now. He was fighting not just for himself, but for something greater, the love blooming in the cracks of their struggles. Lisa stepped closer. "Marcus has helped me more than anyone ever has. He's been there for me through everything, giving his all to the diner and to this town. You need to hear him out." Movement rippled through the crowd. A few nods encouraged him, but the shadows of doubt still loomed large. Marcus's heart beat in rhythm to his rising hopes, and he took another step forward, gesturing toward the workshop behind him. "Let me show you what I do every day. Let me show you the passion, the dedication. I want to share who I really am with you, all of you." A lingering silence filled the air, but curiosity sparked in some of the eyes watching him. Perhaps they were beginning to see the man behind the mechanic's coveralls. He felt the tension crackle, a force pulling at the seams of distrust. And just then, a commotion broke through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Look!" The energy changed instantly, every head turning towards the street where an old, familiar truck came into view, sputtering and wheezing like a wounded animal. Marcus's heart sank. It was the pickup truck belonging to the businessman who had accused him, and there, riding inside, was the man who had turned his life upside down. Feeling the heat of the moment, Marcus knew this would be crucial. If the guy needed help, it was his chance, his opportunity to show the community not just his skills, but his heart. "Let's see if he's really a thief," he muttered, determination flowing through him. He squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever came next, hoping to turn a moment of tension into one of redemption. He stepped forward, feeling Lisa's reassurance behind him. "Let's fix this," he said quietly, bracing for both confrontation and a shot at vindication. "Let's show them who I really am." As the truck rolled to a stop, hearts racing with anticipation, Marcus took a breath, ready for his moment to unfold. Would this be the pivotal turning point he longed for, or would it only deepen the divide? A truth lay in the mechanical chaos ahead, waiting to be revealed. Marcus stepped closer to the truck as it shuddered to a halt, the sound of its sputtering engine echoing the tension in the air. He scanned the vehicle, searching for signs of what went wrong. It was rusted and battered, a testament to years of hard use, but that didn't matter now. What mattered was the man sitting behind the wheel, Tony, the businessman who had laced the town's thoughts with doubt and accusations. "Get out, Tony!" someone shouted from the back of the crowd, a mix of mockery and anger simmering in their voice. The crowd's excitement shifted like the wind, creating an undercurrent that was dark and heavy. Marcus knew he could feel their judgment as they stared at him, expecting him to handle this situation perfectly. But with all eyes on him, he forced his trembling hands to steady. "Hold on," he called back, directing his voice above the murmurs. As Tony opened the door, a grimace formed on his face. He struggled to exit, his leg crammed into the cabin of the truck. Finally, he pushed himself free, leaning heavily against the truck, his breath ragged. Marcus noticed the weariness in Tony's eyes that once reflected nothing but disdain for his place in the community. Marcus, Tony started, his tone wavering. My truck just died on me. I didn't know where else to go. The crowd quieted down, some shifting forward in vested interest. They watched as the man who had once vilified Marcus now stood vulnerable before him, the facade of power cracking. In that moment, it felt as if the entire town held its breath. Why should I help you? Marcus felt a surge of anger mix with the urge to show compassion. His throat felt tight with the tension of their shared past. Because... Tony paused, and for a moment, their eyes locked. In that gaze, Marcus could see a flicker of humanity buried beneath layers of pride and arrogance. Because I need help. I've made mistakes. The audience stood quiet, awaiting Marcus's response. He glanced over at Lisa, whose eyes pleaded for him to find a way to rise above. The words danced on his lips, an internal battle taking form. His heart hammered loudly in his ears. This was a chance to reveal not just his skills, but his true nature. Fine, he said finally, the decision both heavy and liberating. I'll help you, but you'll have to listen too. If I'm going to fix this, I need the truth from you too. A wave of surprise rippled through the crowd, but there was a sense of hope as well. As Marcus gestured for Tony to step forward, he could feel the visible change in the room. The whispers transformed from accusations to whispers of intrigue, some even nodding in approval. Marcus moved to the front of the truck, peering beneath the hood, with Tony standing by, ready to help. As he worked, he explained the intricacy of the engine. Every part counts. Every piece matters. Just like in our community, he said, raising his voice to ensure everyone could hear. You can't just ignore the flaws. You have to work on them together. As he tightened bolts and checked wires, glances exchanged among the townsfolk grew more supportive. The mechanics of the truck slowly began to parallel the mechanics of trust rebuilding in the hearts of those watching. But in the middle of this, something unexpected happened. Marcus caught sight of Tony stealing a glance at Lisa, his expression shifting from self-loathing to a strange kind of regret. A stark contrast to the harshness he had shown before. Why do you care so much, Marcus? Tony asked, his voice vulnerable, revealing the cracks in his bravado. Because this place matters, Marcus replied simply, looking around at the faces of his friends and neighbors. And so do you. In that moment, Marcus knew this encounter could change everything, but he also felt the gravity of more than just mechanics. It was about lives intertwined, and the messy work of love and forgiveness. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting an amber glow, he fixed his eyes on Tony, eager to see if they could forge a new path forward. But just as he made a breakthrough with the truck, a loud crash echoed behind the group. Marcus turned, dread pooling in his gut as he watched a familiar figure stumble into view, clothes disheveled and cheeks flushed with urgency. Sarah, what are you doing here? The crowd gasped, and the atmosphere shifted once again. The moment of hope cracked. Was this the new challenge that would unravel everything they had just begun to mend? Sarah swayed for a moment, catching her breath. The crowd barely moved, their collective shock palpable. This was the last thing Marcus needed, but it was becoming the only thing anyone could think about. Marcus, you have to help me. It's important. Her voice trembled, mingling urgency with a hint of sorrow. What happened? Marcus stepped closer, his voice calm, even as his heart raced. He had known Sarah since they were kids, and something in her eyes made him uneasy. I can't find my brother. I thought he'd be here, but he's missing, she said, her breath hitching. I searched everywhere. I don't know what else to do. For a moment, Marcus felt like the floor had fallen away. The weight of the situation pressed like a leaden blanket on his shoulders. He turned back to Tony, then back to Sarah, trying to process it all. What do you mean missing? He asked, keeping his voice even. How long has he been gone? Since earlier today. He was out with some friends and didn't come home. I thought he was just being irresponsible, but now it feels wrong. The tears streamed down her cheeks, and in that moment, she looked every bit the scared sister. A low murmur spread through the crowd. People were already thinking of their own families, imagining how they'd feel if the roles were reversed. The hope built just moments ago seemed to flicker in the air. Before he could respond, Tony unexpectedly stepped forward, his expression shifting from discomfort to determination. "I can help," he said, surprising everyone. "I know this town. I can organize a search party. We can find him." Disbelief rippled through the crowd. Tony had his flaws, that was undeniable, but in this moment, he chose to set aside his pride. Marcus caught sight of Lisa in the background, her mouth nearly agape. Even she seemed shocked. "Are you serious?" Marcus asked, a wary edge creeping into his voice. Could he really trust Tony? "Absolutely," Tony said, looking Marcus squarely in the eyes. "I'm tired of running away from my mistakes. I want to show I can be better." Something shifted inside Marcus. If Tony was willing to put aside their past and help, really help, then maybe this was the moment they both needed. "All right, let's do it. We need to gather people and spread out. Everyone will be looking for him." Sarah nodded, her relief visible, but it was also layered with a fresh worry. "Thank you," she whispered, squeezing Marcus's hand tightly. "I knew I could count on you." The crowd soon sprang into action. Hands clasped together, voices called out for volunteers, and before long, a plan emerged. Tony started directing people toward different areas of the town, a surprising authority in his demeanor. Marcus felt a fire ignite within him, and for the first time in a long time, he felt propelled by something beyond his own struggles. They were all in this together. As the search party fanned out, Marcus kept Sarah close. She needed support, and he offered her the reassurance he felt they both needed. "Do you have any idea where he might be?" he asked, trying to keep her focused on what mattered. "He loves those old ruins on the edge of town. We used to play there as kids. He might have gone back to get away from everything." She looked up at him, hope mingled with despair. "Then that's where we start," Marcus replied, his mind racing. They needed to move quickly. The group began its march toward the outskirts, fueled by concern and determination. But as they reached the edge of the town, a sudden chill swept through the air, as if a storm were brewing. The sun was setting fast, casting long shadows that stretched ominously across the ground. "Something's not right," Sarah said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded, feeling that creeping dread again. They were heading into the unknown, and as much as they were fighting for a safe return, something told him this wasn't just about finding a brother anymore. It felt larger, deeper, like a lesson that was waiting to unfold. With hearts pounding, they pressed on. But as they crossed the boundary of the town, the air shifted again, and the sound of a distant call echoed through the trees, drawing them closer to whatever awaited on the other side. As they moved deeper into the woods, the trees thickened around them, casting eerie shadows on the ground. A sense of urgency gripped Marcus's heart. He could feel Sarah's fear wrapped tightly around him like a cold fog. Each step they took felt heavier, weighted with worry and uncertainty. "Do you hear that?" Marcus whispered, straining his ears. The call echoed again, a haunting sound that sent shivers racing down his spine. It was a blend of distress and desperation, a voice that hung in the air like a secret tether. Sarah paused, eyes wide, her breath hitching again. "It might be him," she said, the hope in her voice trembling against the weight of fear. She pushed forward, and Marcus hurried to keep pace beside her. "Slow down! We need to be careful," he urged, trying to keep his voice steady even as his heart raced. They followed the sound, weaving through underbrush and ducking under low-hanging branches. The fading light made it harder to see, shadows shifting in unpredictable patterns that danced before their eyes. It felt like the woods were alive, each creak of a branch or rustle of leaves transforming into a thing of fear. The call came again, clearer this time. It was close. Sarah's grip tightened on Marcus's arm, and he could feel her pulse against his skin, racing, frantic. "Please just let him be okay," Sarah pleaded, her voice breaking as they stumbled upon a small clearing. In the center, partially obscured by tangled vines and thick foliage, there lay an old stone structure. Its crumbling walls were overrun by creeping plants, and the remnants of what was once a grand doorway now stood like a shroud over forgotten history. "Is this it?" Marcus asked, glancing between the ruins and Sarah's anxious face. She nodded, her eyes shimmering with tears. Before they could step closer, a deep thud echoed from inside the structure, making them both jump. Their hearts raced as they exchanged a glance. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered. "Yeah. Let's check it out." Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Marcus pushed through the thick branches, his pulse pounding with both dread and determination. As they stepped inside, the air turned stale, cloaked with dust and memories. Shadows flickered in the dim light, revealing fragments of a forgotten world. Marcus's heart dropped when the next sound emerged. A voice, faint yet unmistakably familiar. "Help! Someone, please!" Sarah's face paled and she rushed forward, her tone filled with urgency. "That's him! That's my brother!" Marcus veered to the side, searching for the source of the voice. His heart sunk the moment he spotted a dim light coming from further within the ruins, illuminating a collapsed stone archway. Pushing through the debris, he felt the fire of adrenaline course through him. "Hold on. We're coming." "But it's blocked. I can't get out." The voice was small, laced with panic. Sarah began to cry, tears streaking her dirt-smeared face. "No. No, no. We have to get him." She clawed at the stones, desperate and frantic, her hands shaking as she brushed against cold rock. "Together," Marcus yelled, his own hands grasping at the rubble alongside hers. They screamed out for her brother, hoping to bridge the gap that had formed between them. As they dug deeper, the weight of the stones felt heavier than ever. Sweat dripped down Marcus's brow, but he refused to stop. He could feel Sarah's heartbreak, amplifying his own fears. They needed to rescue him, needed to see her brother safe again. But just as they began to clear a path, the ground vibrated beneath them, and a low rumble filled the air. Something was shifting. Panic gripped Marcus as he shouted, "Get back!" Suddenly a loud crack split the air, and the ancient walls groaned as if they were alive. "Run!" Sarah screamed, but Marcus couldn't move. Not yet. Not until they reached him. And in that moment he remembered Tony's resolve. If they were going to pull through, they had to work as one. The urgency shifted into desperation. Hope clung to the edges of their hearts, but with each tremor, the chance of failure loomed overhead. Will they save him before it's too late? The ground shook violently, and Marcus felt the stones shift alarmingly beneath his feet. Their frantic digging had awakened the ancient structure, exposing its frailty in the face of urgency. He glanced at Sarah, her eyes wide with terror that mirrored his own. "Keep going!" she urged, voice strong despite the fear flooding her features. "We have to get him out." Marcus nodded, determined. He pushed harder against the fallen bricks, adrenaline fueling his every move. Their hands worked in tandem, sending clouds of dust into the air with each shove. He could hear her brother's voice growing fainter, lost in the chaos surrounding them. Come on," he whispered to himself fervently. For every piece they moved, he imagined Tony's face, the hopeful smile that had always reassured them. They wouldn't let it end this way. Suddenly, another rumble jolted through the air, louder than before. The shadows around them seemed to twist and close in, the weight of history pressing down. "Get back! Now!" Marcus yelled, a primal instinct raging through him. He pulled Sarah away, just as a loud crash echoed behind them. A section of the wall gave way, sending splinters of stone and dust cascading to the ground. It was like the ancient structure was collapsing in on itself, rebelling against the intrusion of intruders. But they couldn't retreat. Not now. Not when hope was so tantalizingly close. With sheer resolve, they returned to their task. Marcus felt time stretch, each second a battle of will against rising panic. He could see Sarah's hands trembling, each scrape on her fingers a reminder of what was at stake. He took her hand, squeezing it tightly. "We'll save him. We have to believe that." A flicker of determination surged in her eyes, bolstered by his words. "You're right. Let's keep going." Back at the rubble, the two of them dug relentlessly, momentum carrying them away from the mundane and into the throes of urgency and hope. The voice, weak and distant, called out again, "Help! Please!" Marcus felt every syllable reverberate in his chest, a call to arms that propelled them forward. One more rock, then another. Sweat poured down his brow, mixing with dirt and tears. The air was thick, a heaviness that lingered with desperation. Finally, Sarah cried out, "Marcus, I think I see something." She pointed to a narrow gap widening before them. The dim light flickered there, framing the outline of a figure. Hope ignited in both their hearts, fueling their efforts as they clawed at the debris. "Hold on, Tony!" Marcus shouted again. "We're almost there!" Just as they began to clear the last few stones, another tremor shook the ground. This time it felt different, almost final. Marcus exchanged a worried glance with Sarah, his heart pounding wildly. He could feel the structure's ancient bones groaning under their feet, telling a story of endurance and warning. "No! We can't stop now!" he screamed over the echoing noise. "We're too close!" He threw himself against the last of the rubble, pushing with everything he had. The darkness within the gap began to writhe, shadows morphing as a figure struggled to break free. "Please." Tony's voice was a thread, desperate and strained. With a final surge of strength, both Marcus and Sarah hurled the last stone aside. The way opened wide, revealing Tony's pale and dirt-smeared face. Relief washed over Sarah like a tidal wave. But just as they took a breath, another crack thundered behind them, shaking the ground one last time. The walls, weakened and tired from the battle, began to buckle. The structure was collapsing around them. "Go, get out," Marcus shouted, pulling Sarah toward the opening as debris began to rain down. "No, Tony!" Her voice was filled with anguish, torn between salvation and fear. "Trust me, we can't save him if we don't save ourselves first." What lies in store for them as they confront the aftermath of their desperate gamble? Will they really lose everything after coming so far? The chaos around them surged like wild waters, relentless and unforgiving. As Sarah's eyes darted back to the gap, Marcus tightened his grip. "We have to leave, now." His voice cut through her hesitation, even as a part of her heart screamed to stay. With one last heart-wrenching look at Tony, she let Marcus pull her through the narrow opening. Rocks tumbled down behind them, a cacophony of danger and despair. The air was thick with dust, and Marcus stumbled forward, instinct guiding him through the choking haze. They burst out into daylight, the bright sun feeling surreal after their harrowing descent. But that brief moment of relief shattered as another rumble echoed from the ancient structure. It sounded like thunder, but came from deep within the earth. "Down!" Marcus shouted, pushing her to the ground. They hit the dirt just as debris rained down like deadly hail. Sarah's heart raced wildly in her chest, a sharp reminder of the chaos they had just escaped. "Tony," she whimpered, eyes wide, searching the rubble they had just left behind. "Tony's strong. He can hold on," Marcus reassured her, even as uncertainty coiled tightly in his own gut. But doubt was a knot they couldn't afford now. They needed to focus. Explosions of earth and rock cascaded around them, flinging bits of ancient history into the air. The ground trembled again, and Marcus could feel the panic rising like bile in his throat. He could still be inside. We can't just leave him. Sarah's tears were hot on her cheeks, streaking through the dust that clung to her skin like a shroud. "We have to go back. We can't just leave him. No, listen to me." Marcus grabbed her shoulders, forcing her focus back to him. "If we go back in, we might not make it out. We have to find help." His voice was steady, a lifeline amidst the turmoil, but internally he wrestled with the same desperate urge to go back. "Help!" a voice echoed in the distance. It was stronger now, tinged with urgency. "Help us!" It was a group, emerging from the tree line nearby, their faces stricken with worry. Local guides, drawn by the commotion their digging had caused. "What's happening?" one of them yelled, rushing forward. There's someone trapped inside," Sarah cried, pointing desperately toward the crumbling entrance. "Get back! The structure isn't safe." But even as the warnings filled the air, Marcus felt the pull of responsibility weigh down his heart. He turned to Sarah, seeing the panic flickering in her eyes alongside the glimmers of hope. "We can't lose him. We can't." As the dust settled, a determination ignited between them, a fragile thread of hope that began to weave its way through their despair. "We'll get him out," she promised, breathless. "We can't let him down." The group rallied, urgency coursing through their veins. They ran to gather tools, to brace the structure, to dig deeper, to risk everything for Tony. The reality of the danger loomed over them like a dark cloud, but Marcus could feel the fire of commitment igniting in the others. They weren't alone anymore, but time was not on their side. The earth rumbled again, a sinister growl that spoke of an impending collapse. "Let's move," Marcus urged, adrenaline propelling their bodies forward. They had to work fast. Did Tony even know they were coming for him? As they reached the ruins once more, the earth shook again, furious and unyielding. The moment of decision settled over Marcus, the weight of it riding heavily on his shoulders. "Together," he called out, just as another tremor shook the ground. But right before they began digging again, a chilling sound echoed from inside, the unmistakable sound of something breaking, something precious being lost. What more could they lose, and would they find the strength to forge ahead against the crushing weight of despair? Marcus could hardly breathe. The sound from within the ruins seemed to echo louder than any tremor, a crack, sharp and unforgiving. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand. "Go!" he barked, urgency spilling into his words. The guides scrambled, forming a line. They passed tools back and forth, clinging to hope even as the earth beneath their feet quaked ominously. Sarah's hands trembled as she took a shovel. The weight of the moment pressed down on her. "What if we're too late?" she almost whispered. "No," Marcus said, meeting her gaze. "We'll do everything we can. This isn't the end." They dug feverishly, the sweat mingling with dust on their skin. Each shove of the shovel felt like both a prayer and a plea, each measured breath filled with the weight of desperation. Behind her, other villagers appeared, joining the fray. It felt like a small army on a mission, to fight for a life, to battle the ruins, to save their own. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest. "Tony, can you hear me?" Silence answered. The group worked in a rhythm, a beat of hope interspersed with the roars of the crumbling structure above. Marcus felt that heaviness in his chest lift just a bit with every inch they progressed. "We're coming, buddy," he shouted, hoping against hope that Tony could somehow hear. But as they dug deeper, doubt began to creep in again. What if they didn't reach him in time? Then came another rumble, a menacing growl that carried a threat within it. The structure above seemed to lurch, as if it too held its breath. "Get back!" one of the guides yelled, his voice raw with panic. "We can't stabilize it." "Just a little more," Sarah pleaded, her voice cracking but determined. She gripped the shovel tighter, eyes wild with fear and determination. They pressed on. Every flick of dirt was a desperate attempt to save Tony. Just when another tremor hit, sending shockwaves through the air, a faint cry emanated from within the wreckage. "Help! Please!" Sarah dropped her shovel, her heart soaring in that moment. "Did you hear that? It's him." "Stay focused," Marcus shouted, his voice nearly drowned out by the chaos. But she could see the flicker of hope in his eyes, too. It was a connection, a tether to Tony. They couldn't stop now. They resumed digging, furiously removing debris until their hands bled. The sound of splintering wood echoed, a chilling reminder that time was slipping away. Each second felt like a lifetime, but they pressed on, driven by faith and the hope of rescue. "All good things come to an end, and so must this," murmured one guide, his voice heavy with resignation as he paused in the shadows beneath the tremors. "No, we won't give up," Marcus slammed his shovel into the earth. "We are bringing Tony back." "Together," Sarah added, swallowing fear. Just as they cleared another layer of rubble, a hand appeared, reaching out from within the debris. "Tony!" she cried, emotions crashing over her like a tidal wave. Was he really there? But even as they spotted him, another roar surged from the depths of the earth. The ground shook violently, and they could feel the pulse of danger surging through them. Would they make it out intact? The moment hung in the air, their breaths shallow and frantic. Would they save Tony before everything crumbled around them? Sarah's heart raced as she caught sight of Tony's hand. Fingers stretched weakly towards the light. It was like a lifeline thrown into the tempest of despair swirling around her. "Hold on! We're coming!" she screamed, her voice raw, infused with urgency. Time stood still as they plunged their shovels back into the rubble. Each scoop felt monumental, filled with a sense of purpose. The cries of the villagers echoed all around them, merging into a single heartbeat, one desperate collective hope. "Just a little more!" Marcus shouted, feeling the vibrations beneath his feet grow fiercer with each tremor. He refused to let fear steal the moment from them. He could feel the resolve in the line of diggers behind him, their faces set with determination. As they cleared more debris, he caught the shimmer of Tony's arm. It looked so fragile, more like a memory than a living person. "Come on, Tony. You can do this," he called, sweat drenching his brow. Another quake rattled the ruins, louder this time, sending fresh clouds of dust into the air. "We need to hurry," one of the villagers shouted. Panic skittered through the crowd, but Marcus held his ground, grasping Sarah's shoulder for strength, a silent promise that they wouldn't falter. Each scoop of earth became a prayer, a mantra. "We are coming for you, Tony." Every time they reverberated it, it filled them with the strength to keep going, to keep believing. Sarah could feel a knot of fear clenched tight in her stomach as they continued digging. Would he really be okay? She caught hold of a piece of what looked like a pillar, her body straining under its weight as she pulled it away. "Tony, can you hear us?" There was no instant reply. For what felt like eternity, it was just the dust swirling around her and the echoing sound of her own breath. But suddenly, there it was again. A soft murmur. "Help. Please, please." Her words stirred through the wreckage, igniting a spark of adrenaline. She began pulling debris with both hands, her voice raised. "We're almost there." Then Marcus threw both arms into the hole they were creating. The flicker of his smile ignited a daring hope. "I see his shirt," he shouted, all doubt fading as he peered into the hollow of the rubble. But the ground shook again. A fierce, unforgiving tremor that felt like nature itself was warning them. It was louder this time, shaking them to their cores, unsettling the very fabric of what they were trying to save. "Back! Get back!" one of the guides shouted. His face was pallid, eyes wide with fear. But Marcus, adrenaline surging, wasn't ready to yield. He turned back fiercely, rallying the group. "We can do this. One last push." It was like something snapped in all of them. Together they tore into the rubble harder, faster, riskier than they ever had before. And in that moment, Sarah grabbed his hand, gripping it like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality, her voice trembling. "We will get him out. We have to." Their resolve erupted like a wildfire, a rush of energy as they all pushed one last time, desperately clawing toward life, toward Tony. And just like that, a glimmer of hope emerged, a sigh of breath from below. "I'm here." It was barely a whisper, but the entire world tilted, and in that fragile moment, clarity broke through the chaos. But then the ground roared again, threatening their very existence. Ice-cold dread pooled in their stomachs. What if this was it? Would they save Tony? Or would they too become a part of the ruins? Time slowed, breaths were held, and they all waited for an answer. The earth trembled again, but this time something shifted, as if the ground itself was whispering words of both caution and affirmation. It was now or never. As everyone clutched their tools, hearts synchronic in rhythms of urgency, determination surged through the crowd like a spark igniting dry grass. "We have to save him," Marcus insisted. Each word felt like the only thing standing between hope and despair. With renewed resolve, they pushed forward, hands working like well-oiled machines. Shovels flew through loose dirt, fingers clawed through rubble. It felt as if the very spirit of the community was pouring into this one act of solidarity. Sarah felt her heart beat wildly as she heard Tony's voice again, faint, yet full of will. "I'm here. Help me." It was a siren call that resonated deep within her, urging them to fight harder for a life that mattered to all of them. She was no longer just fighting for him. She was fighting for a promise, for a bond that transcended mistakes and past grievances. Finally, as the dust began to settle, they uncovered more than just the darkness of buried stone. There was a flash of white t-shirt, drenched in sweat and uncertainty. "I see him!" Marcus shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. "Clear the area! We're pulling him out!" The group collectively roared as they worked faster, the weight of despair lifting like shadows chased away by the sun. Each movement, each gasp of breath, was filled with the belief that they could indeed pull him from the brink. With a fierce determination, Marcus plunged his hands into the crevice, inching closer to reach Tony's arm. "Grab my hand!" he yelled, fearless, the ancient stone seeming to shake as if the very foundations sensed the urgency. Tony's fingers emerged, grasping towards the light that had become so distant, yet so close. "It's too tight!" Tony's voice shook with desperation. "I can't get out!" But he didn't give up. The strength in his tone was a beacon, igniting the hope around them. "Just hold on, we're right here," Sarah cried, fierce tears streaming down her cheeks. "We aren't leaving you." She could see his face dimly illuminated by their frantic efforts, the fear and hope dancing across his features. The tension in the air crackled fiercely. They were all on the edge of breaking into joy or despair. Over and over, they worked to clear one final barrier. And then, with one united heave, they pulled. "Now!" Marcus bellowed, as he grasped Tony's wrist, feeling flesh and bone against his calloused hands. With a final collective pull that echoed through the heart of the town, they heaved him forward. A flurry of hope erupted as Tony finally broke free from the remnants of the past. As he emerged, dirt-covered but alive, the vibrations of relief swept through the crowd like an approaching storm of gratitude. He gasped for breath, the air grounding him back to life, reminding him of everything worth fighting for. "Yes," Marcus roared, jubilation breaking like a dam of emotion. The crowd's cheers melded together in a chorus of triumph, washing over them, healing the past. "Tony!" Sarah rushed forward, tears flowing freely as she wrapped her arms around her brother. Both of them shook with the weight of relief, that powerful love pulling them into an embrace tighter than any fear could ever hold. "You're safe!" The crowd erupted, cheers mingling with gasps of disbelief. Tony's eyes shone with gratitude and newfound humility. "I'm sorry. I was so stupid," he murmured, tears streaking through the grime on his face. Together, we'll rebuild. We learn, we grow, Marcus said, stepping closer, lifting his chin in defiance against every challenge they had faced. You're not alone anymore. The fervor of the moment crescendoed, lifting spirits like a roller coaster racing at high speeds. Marcus caught Lisa's gaze in the swelling crowd, her radiant smile shining brightly. With remnants of the past crumbling behind them, they started forward into a future brightened by unity. The lessons learned from shadows of despair seemed to weave into the fabric of hope and resilience. And as the sunset painted the sky with colors of triumph over adversity, each of them knew that they had found strength, not just within themselves, but within their community, a love that forged identities anew. As evening fell, warmth settled in their hearts, promising that together they could weather any storm. This is it. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Each like truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Join this journey. The community you deserve is just one click away.